American liberal nationalism, I feel, is one of the most detrimental rhetorical devices coming from the American liberal movement. When I say American liberal nationalism, let me explain what I mean. In the US empire, you've got your nationalists, which most of them are right-wing. They are MAGA. They sometimes align with Nazism, not always, but most of the time, pretty much far-right conservative. And if anything, even moderate conservatives can identify as nationalists. Because the thing is that nationalism prioritizes the nation state in terms of its policies. If a government is a nationalist government, then any policy that it passes, any laws that it passes, any agenda that it passes has to be within the interest of the nation state. Now, I'm obviously characterizing this as American liberal nationalism because I am American and I am speaking to Americans, unfortunately, because I want people to divorce nationalism from the American perspective. And as of recently, I feel like my goal on YouTube is to try to get liberals to leave liberal movements and leave liberal ways of thinking and to become left-wing. Whatever strain of leftism you choose to identify with later in life, that's your choice, not mine. I'm not here to dictate your life. But what I am here to tell you is that your nationalist ways of thinking are not helping. So let me give an example as to what liberal American nationalism would look like. So you've got Donald Trump, right? Evil guy. I think we're on the same page here, especially if you claim to identify as a liberal. I don't think it's going to be hard for you to be able to say, yeah, Donald Trump, terrible guy. And of course, we can also agree that Donald Trump has passed a lot of terrible legislation over the years. And we can even argue that Donald Trump's legislation are nationalist legislations. They're dumb nationalist legislations. As of recording this right now, Donald Trump has not only incited reciprocal tariffs as a way of inciting a trade war, but he has actually, as of recording this, made a 90-day pause on these reciprocal tariffs, right? And of course, we can argue that not only is this detrimental to the American economy, but this is coming strictly from a nationalist point of view. America First, for example, is a nationalist movement. It's a nationalist slogan. It literally is in the name, America First. Also, MAGA, right? Make America Great Again. These are nationalist movements. These are nationalist slogans and nationalist ideologies. But what's the liberal version of that? Have you ever heard the phrase, "we are not like this"? Or maybe you've heard something along the lines of, "we're America. We're the greatest nation on earth. We're the strongest economy. We're better than these pitiful reciprocal tariffs. We're better than these mass deportations and concentration camps of migrants. We're better than passing anti-transgender legislation. We're better than banning abortion." Come on, guys. We just need to rejuvenate the American spirit, so all of you go out and vote and make sure that you vote for the Democrats and you vote for all of these policies. I'm going to stop right there because you know where this is going. This is a slippery slope that we are all just so tired of at this point. So let's dissect the specific phrase, "we're better than this." The United States is not above tyranny or authoritarianism or genocide. In fact, not only is it actively engaging in it right now, but my cat is actually scratching the chair right now. Not only is the United States empire not above all of these horrific atrocities, not only are we engaging as a nation state in all of these horrific atrocities, but all of these atrocities are what made this empire exist in the first place. America did not found itself on non-violent means. No, it founded itself on enslavement, robbing people of their basic autonomy, and genocide. So it should come to no surprise that the United States is funding a genocide actively right now. in the Middle East. It should come as to no surprise that people are losing their basic human rights and losing right to their bodily autonomy. That should come as to no surprise to you, actually. Like when a police officer does an extrajudicial murder and they get off scot-free through qualified immunity, yeah, that should come as to no surprise, because the police industrial complex was literally born because there was an industry in the 1800s where slave owners needed to catch their runaway slaves, so they would hire these slave catchers. So the police, which is a fundamental part of our government that keeps getting overfunded routinely, time after time again, it should come as to no surprise that our police system is inherently racist, because fundamentally it is a racist institution. That's why it was created. That's what they do now. It should come as to no surprise that we have a whole prison industrial complex where the majority of people in prison are people of color, because police officers pull people of color over even though people of color and white people commit the same amount of crime. So it's just a little ridiculous to assume that the United States Empire is somehow above all of these horrific things, when really, fundamentally, the United States have always been involved in all of these horrific atrocities. Now, should you be mad about this? Should you be outraged about these horrific atrocities? Absolutely. But maybe all of those years watching The West Wing is really not paying off right now. Maybe it's time to change the praxis in which we utilize in order to make some kind of subversive impact on the state that is routinely allowing this white supremacist fucking hegemony to exist in the first place. Now, some of you might be experiencing some kind of disillusionment. How can this country, America, land of the free, home of the brave, how can this be such an authoritarian nation state to its very fundamental root? And that is because you've fallen for the propaganda. You have been duped by the nationalist agenda. American nationalists and American so-called patriots, which is just a nicer way of saying that you're a nationalist, want you to believe that Christopher Columbus discovered America, that Thanksgiving was just a feast between the Europeans and the natives, and it was just so peaceful, and everybody exchanged everything. They don't want you to know about the slave trade, or the human trafficking for that matter. Let's be real here. They don't want you to know that Christopher Columbus was answerable to the monarchy in Spain, which is why he made this voyage in the first place. They don't want you to know about the 100 million Native Americans that have had their not only families and peoples completely decimated, but also their cultures completely erased, their history completely rewritten, and their languages completely extinct. They don't want you to know about the mass pillagings and rapes that the settlers did among all of the natives in this region. They don't want you to know that. They would rather that you just know that Martin Luther King Jr. ended racism forever, even though racism still exists today. And that's because all of these rhetorical devices that I have just comedically torn apart here are all part of what is called the American canon, right? These are stories that are somewhat based on reality, but are distorted so that you can consume them and then feel as if America has grown since its inception. But realistically speaking, what we need to recognize is that America has not become better than all of these horrific skeletons in the closet. No, the only thing that the American empire has become is more powerful and harder to stop and to hold accountable. Think about that. Israel is using our taxpayer dollars to enact a genocide in Palestine. Do you really think that the United States has grown as a nation state from the days of Christopher fucking Columbus? No, absolutely not. Donald Trump being the president of the United States twice is the natural conclusion as to what happens when we don't hold the nation state accountable. You've got the United Nations, who is quite literally incapable of holding the United States accountable because the United States is on the Security Council. You have the International Criminal Court, which can't hold any of these parties accountable, even though it desperately wants to. You have the Democratic Party, which is just gonna roll over and do whatever the fuck the Republican Party wants it to do, which is exactly the reason why we're in this situation in the first place. Because of this American exceptionalist attitude that people have towards holding the American government accountable for its crimes against humanity. So I ask to the liberals in the audience, not the leftists, because I'm pretty sure leftists have already learned their lessons right now. Can you recognize that having unconditional love and support to the nationalist identity of the United States Empire, can you recognize that that right there is detrimental to any future progress in humanity? Because look at what Donald Trump did with the tariffs. These are decisions that he made on nationalist principles. Having nationalist identity in anything, even from a liberal's perspective, doesn't bring the cost of groceries or the cost of living down. It doesn't give you more basic human rights that you have been robbed of. It doesn't end the genocide in Palestine. And more importantly, it does not fucking fix shit. It is an intoxication of your brain. And it doesn't help anybody but the ruling class. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. I hope this was some good constructive criticism. I know that this is a much shorter video than usual. Still working on much larger video. I hope you like it when it comes out. April 30th, mark your calendars. And that's it. I'm gonna go take a nap now. Bye.